I'm John Felt, and this is the Merschman Seeds Ag Weather Outlook, April 14th, 2018. Well, it's the middle of April, and just when you think it can't get much worse, we have a blizzard across the Corn Belt. This area in red here, blizzard warnings are posted, winter storm warnings are posted further to the north. So a good part of the western and northern Corn Belt is being affected by significant winter weather here on April 14th. The eastern Corn Belt, central and eastern Corn Belt, rain and some severe weather as well. Now currently, as the time of this briefing, we have this area of low pressure here. Look at the streamlines of winds. Those are those really strong winds, and that's what's blowing the snow around. Boy, I tell you, I'm even talking about this briefing, I can't believe this is spring, and I'm talking about a winter-type pattern. So precipitation over the last week, we had both in the form of snow and we had in the form of rain here. Eastern Corn Belt, that rain is moving in at the current time ahead of this cold front, so that'll be spreading east. Snow is moving from west to east. Speaking of snow, right here in this region here, areas of yellow, over 6 inches of snow, over 18 inches estimated of snow right here along the South Dakota-Nebraska border and into South Dakota. So especially South Dakota, very heavy amounts of snow. And like I said, at the current time, this is pushing off to the east. So right now we have over 4 inches of snow on the ground, and in some cases quite a bit more, near 10 inches or more, over parts of western Nebraska, large part of South Dakota. Look at how much coverage of snow over South Dakota at this time, as well as North Dakota, Minnesota, parts of northern Wisconsin, far northern Michigan. That's something I want to look into this week, is really all this snow, and that's going to increase our vulnerability for wet soils. It's going to increase our vulnerability for cold soil temperatures, and it's going to increase our vulnerability for flooding on tributaries and maybe even midstream rivers as well once it all melts. Now, temperatures last week were cold over the upper Midwest. Now, remember last week's briefing I said we're going to have a reprieve? Well, there were 2 or 3 days, it doesn't show up on this weekly average, where temperatures warmed up really nicely over the southern Corn Belt. And you know where you can see that? Look at the soil temperatures, current soil temperatures. You can really see where that push of warm air was. 60-degree temperatures now have pushed into western Missouri, parts of Kansas, and even eastern Missouri into the Ohio River Valley, 50 to 55. So we saw a very significant warm-up of temperatures with that push of warm air. Now, it didn't make it over much further than this. We're still looking at 40s over Iowa, central Iowa, and 30s further to the north. And obviously with snow on the ground, we're not going to budge a whole lot. As far as soil moisture goes, soils are generally at least adequate, if not wet. Wet is the areas in blue. Green, I'd say, is more adequate. But look over the southwest U.S. This is the area that's the very dry soils. Remember the wildfires this week over Oklahoma? Matter of fact, Oklahoma, the far southeast, 30 inches of rain. The Panhandle, less than an inch. So very strong gradients in those areas. Okay, so here's the forecast. Everybody's wondering, when are we going to break this cold pattern? Doesn't look like it'll be this week. We have still this mean position of a trough. It doesn't look all that intense there, but with the snow on the ground and with cold air, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, well below normal this week. As we get into the eastern Corn Belt, not quite so much so, maybe more like 5 degrees below normal, but still, this pattern just does not look like it's going to break, at least this week. Now, here's your precipitation forecast. Remember I said here's the first front pushing through eastern Corn Belt, heavy precipitation in the form of rain. Here's your precipitation in the form of snow. I even have worse news in that I see 3 separate systems over the next week or so, and each one of those looks like it could be cold enough in that area from the Dakotas, Nebraska, northern Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, to produce even more snow. I wouldn't bet on this forecast, but this is just the total snow potential over that time frame, and look what the total snow is. So it does have potential. Here's the next one, the midweek system. So it looks to me like if you're sort of north of this line here, more snow can be expected. Now we get into the 19th through the 24th. It looks like the jet stream's trying to sort of level out here, sort of straighten out. It doesn't look that impressive, but when the model shows us the temperature profile, well, that doesn't look like we have a whole lot of warming. Now, there's going to be some variability in here, like we saw last week. This doesn't mean every day is going to be 10 to 20 degrees below normal. We're going to have 2 or 3 days that will get probably above normal. Probably the southern Corn Belt and the eastern Corn Belt. With the snow and the cold air in the north, I think that's entrenched right now. Let's look out a little bit further, 11 to 14 day. Well, this looks to me a little bit better here. So maybe after about a week to 10 days, we get actually a little bit of ridging, and it looks like we finally, I don't see much sign of that trough anymore that has been sitting here. Now, temperatures still sort of show this residual, but it looks to me like after about a week to 10 days, I think we have a beginning to see some emerging signs of breaking this pattern down. I'm going to follow up with it this week, so stay tuned. But I'm sort of reaching for anything for some optimism here, but that could be, if it does break down, that could be our sign of the change. So week 1, I think I've covered that pretty good. Snow and rain. Here's week 2. Green being above normal precipitation. Looks like yellow being below normal. Now, weeks 3 and 4, I think there's a lot of uncertainty as we get further out. Weeks 3 and 4 is still showing, I've got to sort of mention here, this well below normal. So this would give us, if that would occur, some problems lingering into the start of the growing season. We will see. I need to watch this really closely this week to sort of look at this outlook versus some of the models I'm seeing in that 10-day period. But right now, I think let's just point out that at least there is that prospect of a return to that pattern if there would be a break. But coming back to the short term here, looks like a cold week, more snow in spots over the northern Corn Belt. If you happen to be in Texas and Oklahoma, high fire risk today. But overall, I think the story here is going to be below normal temperatures, significantly below normal temperatures. The rest of this weekend and into early in the week, and then still below normal temperatures, but some moderation. That's this week's briefing. If you ever have any questions, comments, if you want me to add something, maybe focus on more on something, any comments you have, you can always reach me, John, John, @bluewateroutlook.com. Have a great week.